When iQOO launched the iQOO 13, it was the most affordable flagship with the Snapdragon 8 Elite. And 120 days later, it is still the most affordable flagship with the best Android chipset that you can find in the market today. And here in our office, Tanishq and Shrikant both have been daily driving this phone. And the phone has gone through everything. Hours and hours of gaming, hours and hours of watching YouTube videos, scrolling through Instagram Reel, capturing photos, and even some dangerous drops. So we decided to find out how is the iQOO 13 120 days later, has it held up well, and is it still worth considering? Alright, if you're watching me for the first time, I'm Arshad. This is Trakin Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. So generally when we use a phone to test it long term, we don't use it with a cover, which is the same thing that we did with the iQOO 13. And it actually inspires a fair bit of confidence in the build quality itself. On the rear, what you get is a glass and plastic combination design, and you get a metal frame, of course. And in the front, you get short sensation alpha protection on top of the display. We've actually properly rough used the phone like it was some kind of rugged phone, but still we feel like it actually held up well and it didn't break. There are some dents and scratches, but nothing that is major. And despite being a slim phone, we felt like the iQOO 13 is actually very comfortable to hold and use, primarily because the back is slightly curved, so it sits in the palm nicely. And despite using a massive 6000 mAh battery, you actually have a frame that is just about 8.13 millimeters thick. And you know what? The weight of the phone is actually 213 grams, but you really don't feel it. Even in everyday usage, iQOO's done the weight distribution really well. And if you ask me, I really like this Nardo grey color variant of the iQOO 13. It might look a little drab to some people, but I like my phones being minimalistic and clean in terms of design. And the good thing with iQOO flagships is that when you see that squircle camera module, you can immediately tell that it is an iQOO flagship. Plus, if you get that BMW design variant of the phone, then obviously you know that it's an iQOO flagship. But even then, to add some extra bit of character to the new iQOO 13, iQOO went ahead and added a monster halo light. And iQOO has all your bases covered in terms of functionality in the design. For example, of course, you do get IP69 rating, which is fantastic. The Type-C port at the bottom is a proper Type-C 3.2 port. And you also do get an infrared blaster, so no stone left unturned. Just like how we try to do with our reviews and comparisons here at Trakin Tech English. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, we'd love your support. Go ahead, bang it, mash it right now. So the iQOO 13 6.82-inch flat display is actually one of my favorites in the business. You get 2K resolution, 120Hz refresh rate in the UI, 144Hz refresh rate in certain games, and it can get plenty bright outdoors and indoors both. Like I mentioned, we've been watching a lot of YouTube and Netflix, both of which support HDR video playback, and the HDR tuning and the gradation has been done really well. Especially when you're watching HDR videos, you can see that the display can get actually really bright. That's just not it. The good thing is that in the Pro Color mode, you also do get very good color tuning as well. Very close to neutral colors, and you can actually trust it for even some, light edits of photos and videos. Now, while you do get stereo speakers on the iQOO 13 in our, 120 days with the phone, we felt like the speakers could have been slightly better. The bass is a little lacking and doesn't feel flagship grade. Another thing that we noticed is that you get support for LDAC, Bluetooth codec, but not LHDC, which is actually true for many Vivo and iQOO phones that we've tested. But one area where iQOO has definitely made huge strides is in the haptic feedback. Because what it has done is that it's added a larger haptic motor, and the feedback is actually tight, crisp, and precise compared to iQOO 12 for sure. In fact, the haptic feedback experience is further enhanced by the fact that FunTouchOS 15 actually has a lot of areas where it uses this haptic feedback very well to, showcase some UI elements, which is very nicely done. Of course, this time you also do get an ultrasonic in-display fingerprint scanner, which is definitely better than the optical in-display fingerprint scanner. Not only because it's a more reliable solution and it's very fast to unlock and it will also work with wet fingers, but also because the position of that fingerprint scanner is much more comfortable to reach. It's not very at the bottom and, difficult to reach. Now, when I used the phone initially and reviewed it, I'd said that iQOO 13 has actually tamed the Snapdragon 8 Elite, and that's true 120 days later as well. We've gotten some of the best Antutu scores. Even the Geekbench score is some of the highest ones that we've achieved. The CPU doesn't throttle much even in the highest performance mode, which is incredible. And you also get LPDDR5X Ultra RAM time, and along with FunTouchOS 15's optimizations, which seems to improve RAM performance, which is something that was a problem with FunTouchOS in the past, and I'm glad that iQOO has taken feedback and improved it. Well, with both of these combined, you actually do get very good RAM management as well. So it doesn't unnecessarily kill apps in the background. Plus, you also get UFS 4.0 4.1 storage with great read-write speeds too. The 3D Mark wireless stress test was very good when we tested it initially. It's also pretty good right now, after multiple updates I mean. So you get very good GPU stability, the best loop score is pretty good as well, the FPS is also very high. So we generally run Genshin Impact and we got about 60.2 frames per second and the temperatures didn't even cross 40 degrees, which is fantastic. And that's also largely thanks to the fact that you get a very large 7,000mm square vapor cooling chamber inside. But BGMI players are probably going to be the happiest using this phone, because while it can touch 120 FPS, if you use frame generation or frame interpolation actually, you can actually go up to 143.1 FPS, and Tanish is like overjoyed about that fact. He says that this phone can actually be used for esports as well, it's that good. And we've been using this phone extensively with both Jio and Airtel's networks, and honestly we didn't face any problem with call quality or even mobile data. Plus you get Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 5.4 and NFC, multiple 5G bands. No problem there. Now with the 6000 mAh battery and Snapdragon 8 Elite's power efficiency, we noticed that initially we were getting excellent battery life with the iQOO 13. We were getting about 9 hours of screen on time, which is very good, right? But the first update that we got with the iQOO 13, the battery life actually went down to about 7 hours of screen on time, and we were worried about it. But the next update came and immediately fixed that problem, and we're now getting anywhere between 8 to 9 hours of screen on time, which is good. Now obviously you get good battery life, but you get fantastic charging speeds. 120 watt, which is currently I think the fastest charging standard in the market right now. So you can charge the 6000 mAh battery in about 30 minutes, which is super fast. But you do not get support for wireless charging, which is something that iQOO has opted to sort of omit with their flagships. And you know what's even better? Within the box, for the price that the iQOO 13 is selling for, right? You actually get that 120 watt charger inside the box, which also supports PPS standard and USB PD, which means that we've actually been using that iQOO 13 charger to charge our MacBooks as well. Now this is the kind of initiative that I really like it, when brands take that, give you like really proper high quality accessory inside the box. iQOO does that, and that's a good thing. Now within the game mode, you also do get direct drive power supply. Essentially, this is another word for bypass charging. So basically, when you connect the charger to the phone, it doesn't charge the phone, but just takes power so that you can keep playing without having to worry about the phone heating up. Now the iQOO 13, of course, has a very versatile triple rear camera system. Now compared to the iQOO 12, of course, you do not get a 3x telephoto camera, you get a 2x telephoto camera. But my observations from my initial videos on the iQOO 13 have largely been unchanged. Even after multiple updates, the camera performs exactly the same way. There has been no deterioration, which is very, very good. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about some of the things that I noticed with the camera. So the primary camera, even though it's a smaller sensor compared to the iQOO 12, has good detail retention. In fact, the low light performance is also up there with other flagship cameras. The HDR performance is great. It's very well done here, and almost every single time we shot something which required really good HDR correction, considering that it actually takes a page out of Vivo's algorithm tuning, and HDR is generally good on Vivo and iQOO phones. Color reproduction is also on point once again thanks to the natural color mode, but I prefer the vivid one just because of the poppy colors, and you generally get photos that are more social media ready. But the skin tones are something that still are not very true to life. In fact, they have a little bit of deviances from the actual skin tone, which definitely can be improved with software updates, and I really hope that iQOO can take the feedback. The ultrawide works well when there is good lighting, but it kind of struggles in low light. Now the 2x camera is good, especially when you use it with the humanistic street mode to capture portraits. We kind of like the portraits that we got from it. Plus with the 2x camera, you also get 4x lossless zoom, which is actually not too bad, and it also gives you the option to capture portrait shots in 4 different focal lengths. Plus I also like how iQOO has implemented some of Vivo's lens simulations, which is something that didn't exist before. But we noticed one weird thing is that when you're shooting in low light at 2x, it doesn't use the 2x camera. It actually crops in with the 1x primary camera. I'm presuming that's because iQOO feels that the 1x would be better if it's cropped in 2x without losing details. But I still feel like iQOO could have given 2x the opportunity to capture a low light shot. Now overall with the iQOO 13, we like clicking photos with it, but there could be cameras that might perform better. Also, I know for a fact that a lot of folks wanted a 3x telephoto just like the iQOO 12 had, and this one I said 2x, but at least with the portrait shots, iQOO doesn't make any compromises because the portrait shots do look good. Alright, now time to talk about the software. You get FunTouchOS 15 based on Android 15, and iQOO is also promising 4 plus 5 years of software updates. I've obviously spoken at length about using FunTouchOS 15 and what I feel about it, and of course it's a complicated love-hate relationship. But the good thing about iQOO and FunTouch is that iQOO's been very, very consistent with updates, and you do get updates on time. And mostly our experience, at least with FunTouchOS 15, has been bug-free, which is something that I cannot say even about iOS 18 on the iPhone 16 Pro Max that I'm using. We also did notice that global search had certain personalized apps and recommendations, which is something that we were not really fans of. You also do get hot apps and hot games and some pre-installed apps. You can, of course, disable hot apps and hot games, which is a good thing. My suggestion is if you do end up buying the iQOO 13, just spend some 10 minutes with it during your initial setup if you want a bloatware-free, clean experience, because after that, it actually does become better. But the bigger problem that I have with FunTouchOS 15 is that it's slightly dated in terms of design. Whether you're taking a look at the notification shade, the lock screen, the AOD, or the home screen setup, all of that look really odd. Plus the fact that you also cannot add your own icon packs is something that I feel like it's a miss, yeah? But on the other hand, you do get a bunch of AI features which we felt was actually pretty useful. For example, you get AI Eraser, which does work really well, instant cutout, circle to search, and AI translation during calls as well, which worked well. To sum it up, FunTouchOS 15 experience has the decent amount of features. It's pretty good at updates, mostly bug-free, but it's got a dated design and some bloatware stuff which shouldn't exist, and I feel like FunTouchOS 16 is in need of a visual overhaul, that's for sure. Now, even after 120 days, would you still recommend the iQOO 13, Arshad, if you ask me? Well, my verdict is largely unchanged from what I felt about it when I initially reviewed it. See, if you want the best flagship chipset under 60,000, great performance, a decent set of cameras, great battery life, fast charging speeds, then you really cannot go wrong with the iQOO 13. It's still a fantastic proposition, still a very solid phone 120 days later. So what do you guys think of the iQOO 13? And I would love to know if there are any iQOO 13 users in the audience and what your experience has been with the phone, because then you could help other people also make a decision on whether they should buy this one or not. All right, that's it from me for this one. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.